remember this hand coming at you, or this foot coming at you, and I just like, wow, I never seen something like that. So Jack Kirby was absolutely the person for me.
Yeah, I got into comics at a very young age, probably 8 years old. My brother and I would go to visit our father, and the first stop he'd make would be buy us $10, $15 worth of comics that we could just veg out on for the weekend, and that would be the first thing we'd do. We'd get to his place and just unload for like 3 hours and just read comics, and that was something I grew up doing, and so I'd always had an interest in that, and had always been interested in doing art and writing as well, and then actually did not want to do comics once I went to school. I thought I would be a professional illustrator and kind of put comics aside because I'd done a comic book and it was so much work that I said I can't do this for like a job because it doesn't pay that well, and the amount of work to do a monthly comic, every single issue. But then I gave that up, and then I sort of found comic strips again, and that was something that was like, ooh, it's a short thing that I can do. I can do it in 3 hours. I can just put it out and publish it the very next day. And I started doing that and fell in love with the medium again, and realized that I could have this way of expressing myself, and something that I could just really talk about whatever was bothering me, or whatever was funny, whatever things that I just felt like I had to get off my chest. I could do that, and I could get an outlet for it, and I could get paid for it, which was great too. And that really, I think, made me fall back in love with the medium of comics, and realizing that the people I was looking at, I didn't have to be like, because I grew up reading mostly mainstream comics. I didn't grow up in a big city, so I didn't have access to that. And then it wasn't until I graduated college that I started interacting with people who were doing alternative stuff and indie stuff. And once I found that, I really became more enamored with it. And so for me, it's really just about personal expression, and that being a really quick, easy, great way to do it.
Yeah, I would second and third a lot of what was just said. I think a lot of cartoonists get sucked into comics as kids. I don't know if that's true as much today. But when I was a kid, a lot of the stuff I saw in comic books and in newspaper strips just totally absorbed my attention. It was a very intimate connection that you have to these things. I think now the explosion of comics made by teenagers that get published, comics about the teenage years that get published, I'm assuming that's going to encourage people who maybe didn't catch the bug as little kids to get into it in their teen years, because I think suddenly there's a lot of material for a lot of different kinds of people. But for us, I think it was the kids' comics that got us in the first place. But what's really gratifying now is just to see all of the different genres that people can look at within the comics medium.
And when Judith and I were doing the book, I mean, I was a cartoonist when I was younger, and I was inspired by Mad comic books, which is very incredible. And in fact, Al Jaffe did a thing in Mocha Gallery the other night, which is very inspiring. So I was brought up with the Mad comic book type thing, and I used to collect comic books. I mean, everything from Captain Marvel to Flash Gordon, Mickey Mouse, everything. It was really Sofa Surfer, Judith. So in doing the book, we felt that we wanted to fulfill something in life and bring a lot of these artists together, and up and coming and established comic artists, and glad to have these people in our popular music.
I have a question for Keith and Bob about you had mentioned that you're plagiarizing different styles, that you really, not plagiarizing, but copying. I'm sorry, wrong word. Copying. Listen, John Lennon said, nothing in life, everything has already been created. It's just, it's just a matter of our version of that creation. And so, at any rate, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that word. But after doing all this, work with trying to create these other styles, you both said that you were doing other styles. Have you found your own style? Is there a Bob Sikoryak style or a Keith Carter style, individual, your own comic style?
I actually think that what I do has become my style. and the chameleon quality of my work is what my style is. And I think people now, there are a few people who do this. If there is anyone out there who's followed my work, they can sort of see an aesthetic and the choices that I make that are consistent through all the work that I do, even if the style has changed. So I think that has become my style.
That is interesting because I do quite a different stuff, from commercials to comic work to a little bit of everything. And it's funny that in the cutting deadlines, trying to get to a certain place by a certain time, I find myself ripping off people. But in time, it's like it has its own life force, and it ends up having a look. And I realize everything that I do does have a certain look that comes across as I'm thieving, if you will.
Okay.
I think we have time for one more. It's just 8 o'clock, so your hand went up right before I was about to say that.
Hello, my name is Gabby, and right now I'm working with a friend and we're creating a graphic novel. And I just wanted to ask this question to all of you. What advice would you have to anybody who's looking to, start their own graphic novel or comic? This goes in terms of both writing and illustrating.
Well, I was just, my thing is I'm a supporter of the arts. I'm in support of anybody that puts a body of work together where even if it's bad, to write a horrible book takes a lot of work. To draw a horrible book takes a lot of work. So to do one, my hat's immediately off to you. And I immediately say, if you got a product, you put it out there and let the world judge it, because I am a testament that you can put out something bad and it can really become something, or it can lead to nothing. But unless you put it out there, you'll never find that out. So I absolutely say you do it, and don't let nothing stop you.
My advice would be to pull from outside of comics. I think too many people, not just in comics, but in any kind of medium, only look at that medium itself. So as a writer, don't just look at what's being done in the comics, but what's being done in the literary fields, what's being done in movies, all those things, and pull from that inspiration. And the same thing for the artists too. If you're just copying, comic anatomy, it's a whole different experience than when you're drawing real people and having life drawing, and then taking that and building upon those things. So that would be my recommendation: is just to always just pull from outside. Anything that's not from comics, if you bring that into comics, it can only make it stronger.
It's such a big question, I'm not sure where to start. I think the one thing I would say, though, is if you're planning like a really long story, just in terms of creating something that is enormous, I would suggest just breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. So like maybe do like a 5, 10, or 20-page chapter at a time, sort of see how it goes, kind of work out your kinks in within a smaller format than like a 150-page graphic novel. So I think planning and structure is really important, and I'm not quite sure, where you are in the process, but I would really just recommend kind of like building it up from smaller pieces rather than try to like plan out the whole thing at once. A lot of comics came out of serialized comic books and pamphlets and even newspaper strips with serialized long stories, and I think sort of telling a story from the beginning and working your way to the end is kind of a good way if you're just starting out and trying to find your bearings, just sort of see what you've got. So I would just suggest kind of think about it, chapter by chapter. Otherwise, it's just, for me, the idea of doing a 150-page book would just be so daunting, So I would just suggest, try to focus.
It would definitely become a daunting task, and that fun thing you think is so fun now will become a burden, like, what in the crap am I doing? Absolutely. So that's very good advice.
Okay,
Oh,
guys.
wait one thing. You want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh, and go read this book. I highly recommend this book called Make Your Own Damn Movie. It's by Lloyd Kaufman, and he's the president of Trauma. And let me tell you, this guy writes a book, and he tells you how to make a movie, and it makes you realize anybody can do it. And I know we're talking about comics here, but it is very inspiring to get out there and do your damn thing. How about that?
All right. Okay, guys. So the first first 20 people that came here will all be getting our Sikoryak tote bags signed up for, and these guys are going to be generous enough to hang out for a little bit and answer some questions or do some personalizations. Otherwise, for future events, check more information on strandbooks.com.
Did you say the first 20?
First 20.
Well, we were here like at 6, so we should get one, right? I was here at 6, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be signing books. They also have my other book.